Okay, let's talk about extensions quickly. So we talked about the enumeration extension. There is a capture extension to OpenAL now as well, which lets you capture microphone input. Those two extensions are pretty much PC-centric. But the third extension I've listed there is EFX. So we're going to be talking about EFX a little bit throughout this session, so I should maybe clarify the naming there. EFX is an abbreviation that we use for basically the OpenAL effects extension. So this is technology that wraps DSP processing and attaches that to OpenAL. It's not a consumer brand name, so we've talked about EAX games in the past. We're not going to start talking about EFX games. EFX is an abbreviation entirely for developers to make it easier to say the OpenAL effects extension. Okay, two other features you should be aware about. Multi-channel support, so on platforms that support multi-channel audio, you can create and you can render multi-channel buffers via OpenAL, so a 4.0 or a 5.1 audio stream can be rendered through OpenAL. I put at the end there context creation hints. That's just another thing to look out for. Okay, if you were writing a driver for OpenAL, we try to make OpenAL as dynamic as possible, but there are some things that your driver will need to know at initialization time. Some balance of resources, so for instance the number of effect sends that you're going to use in your game, or the balance between mono 3D sounds and multi-channel sounds. It's really, really useful when you're writing a driver to know that at initialization time. So we have what are called context creation hints, which you can set when you open the audio engine, just to help the driver to configure itself in the best way for your game. Let's look at the EFX, or the effects extension in slightly more detail now. The version that's currently in use of EFX 1.0 if you like, is based around our EAX capabilities. So EAX is all about environmental audio. I'm not going to go into this in depth, but this is all about simulating room acoustics and making 3D sound more lifelike. So naturally this includes the notion of auxiliary sends, which can allow multiple sounds to feed a reverb effect, a room effect. The spec also allows for low-pass filtering on both the direct path and the reverb sends. So for environmental audio, this allows us to do things like obstruction and occlusion. All this stuff is accelerated in hardware on our Audiogen X-Fi cards. And naturally the X-Fi cards do a little bit better. Simon's going to talk more about the exact capabilities in a minute, so I won't go into detail there. So a little diagram here. This shows you basic 3D audio. It's just an abstraction of the way that OpenAL works. So we go from sample data through some processing blocks, and then we end up with a 3D mix. When you add the environmental audio, or the EFX extensions to OpenAL, then you get a slightly more sophisticated mixing diagram. So we have the filters in there, and we have the sends, and we have the effect slots where you can put your reverbs. But as you'll see a little bit later, we're doing some work now to extend this routing and to make things more next-gen, if you like. I'm going to finish off this section with just a list of titles. So if you're thinking about OpenAL, this lets you, this helps you to be aware that you're in good company, that plenty of developers have shipped and are shipping titles and looking at using OpenAL. There's two titles on the right-hand side there in red, a cricket sports title and Colin McRae Dirt, a racing title, which are developed by Simon's company, Codemasters. So I'm going to hand over to him right now, and he's going to tell you exactly how he went about putting OpenAL into those titles.